It was supposed to be a calm, easy Sunday. Evelyn, my wife, had been the one who insisted we go to her family's yearly garden get-together. The kind where her parents, siblings, and all their kids parade around in expensive clothes, drop hints about their wealth, whisper gossip when they think no one's listening, and put on this big show of how perfect they all are. I went for my kids, Ava and Eli. And I do mean my kids, because in every way that matters they are mine. I became their dad the day I married Evelyn, 5 years back. Their biological father? He vanished without so much as a goodbye. I was the one there for every nightmare, every scraped knee, every late-night fever. I was the one cheering from the sidelines at their soccer games, showing up at every parent-teacher meeting, and making sure they knew someone in this world was solid and staying. But to certain people in Evelyn's family, I was just a placeholder. That afternoon, I'd been about to hand her father a gift I'd hunted down for months, a vintage watch I knew he'd love, when her sister Clarissa came striding across the lawn like a storm blowing in. Her voice cut through the chatter. "You think you belong here?" she sneered, stabbing a manicured finger in my direction. "You've always been beneath this family. You're nothing but a leech." The air went still. Evelyn's eyes went wide, but she didn't say a word. I kept my tone even. "Clarissa, maybe this isn't the place." I didn't get to finish. She stepped forward and slapped me. The crack of it echoed off the patio walls. My kids gasped. Eli's hand shot out for Ava's, gripping tight. I turned my head back toward her, my cheek hot and stinging. And then she hurled the words that made my blood run cold, words that smashed whatever peace was left in that yard. "You're not even their real father. You just adopted them. You're nothing." Silence slammed down on us. Ava's chin trembled. Eli shrank behind me. Evelyn stood there with her mouth open, speechless. No one moved. No one said a thing to defend me. I reached up and touched the side of my face, still burning from her hand. Then I looked straight into Clarissa's eyes and smiled. "Since you brought it up," I said, "maybe it's time everyone hears the whole truth." My gaze swept the crowd. I was going to keep this to myself, but since we're talking about real parents... Clarissa's smirk faltered. Evelyn's face drained of color. Her father's wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered. Right then, I started to pull at the threads of a secret I'd never planned to share. The envelope I never opened, until now. Everyone stood like statues. Even the air felt frozen. Clarissa still had that smug little smile, riding high on her outburst. My kids, though. Ava's eyes were wet, her lip trembling. Eli was pressed to my side, holding on like he thought I might vanish too. Evelyn finally stepped forward, her voice tight. "Clarissa, that was out of line." I raised a hand, stopping her. "No, Evelyn. Not today. No covering for anyone. Let's tell the truth." From the inside pocket of my jacket, I pulled out a manila envelope. The corners were bent, the paper soft from age, but it was still sealed. I'd been carrying it for years without opening it. I held it up so everyone could see. My voice was calm, almost quiet. "This envelope," I said, "was handed to me 5 years ago, the day I officially adopted Ava and Eli." A hush fell over the group. Inside that envelope was the final report from the private investigator I had hired, the same one Evelyn begged me never to open. I kept that promise, right up until this very moment. Gasps rippled across the patio. Evelyn's face strained to a shade that would make a ghost look tan. My fingers shook just slightly as I slid a finger under the flap and broke the seal. For the first time, I opened it. Inside, there was a stack of papers, photographs, and a notarized letter from the investigator. I looked straight at Evelyn. Then her parents. Then Clarissa. "You said I'm not their real father, Clarissa?" I asked. "Then explain this." I turned the first page toward them, a DNA test. It wasn't a match to Evelyn's ex-husband. In fact, either child shared his DNA. Ava and Eli's biological father was someone else entirely. Murmurs erupted. Heads turned. Evelyn's knees gave out, and she collapsed into a chair. And it wasn't just one man, I said, my voice dropping colder. Your daughter, Mr. and Mrs. Lancaster, had 3 separate affairs during her marriage. She didn't even know which one fathered her children. Clarissa's smirk vanished. Evelyn gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Her mother covered her mouth, eyes wide in horror. But me? I stood my ground. I stayed, I said. Through it all I stayed. I loved those kids like they were my own flesh and blood. I was more of a father than their biological one could ever dream of being. I was faithful. I was supportive. And this is how you repay me? I turned my eyes back to Evelyn. You let your sister humiliate me in front of my children, and you didn't lift a finger to stop her. All of you just sat there, watching like I was some stranger who wandered into your perfect little gathering. I reached back into my jacket and pulled out another envelope, this one crisp, bright white. Fine, I said. Let's make it official. These are annulment papers. Signed. Dated. Filed. Evelyn's face crumpled. Wait, no, you can't just. I can. I cut in. And I already have. I turned to Ava and Eli, kneeling so I was eye level with them. My voice softened. You are my children. You always will be. Nothing changes that. They both wrapped their arms around me, clinging tight. But I wasn't finished. I stood and looked directly at Evelyn's father. As for your company, expect the board to remove you within 30 days. I sold my shares to your biggest competitor. You know, the one you've mocked for years? They now have controlling interest. His eyes went wide, and he sank into a chair like the weight of the news had knocked the air out of him. And the vintage watch? I reached into my pocket, pulled it out, and tossed it onto the table. Fake. Just like your loyalty. Finally, I turned back to Clarissa. You should have kept your hands to yourself. The video my kids secretly filmed, that shocked the internet. I started gathering my things, ready to walk out of that yard for the last time, when I felt a small tug at my sleeve. It was Ava. Dad. Ava's voice was barely above a whisper. Her eyes were still puffy and red from crying. Can I show you something? I nodded and knelt down so we were eye level. She unzipped her backpack, the one I'd given her last Christmas, and pulled out a small tablet. Her hands shook as she swiped through the screen until she landed on a video file labeled Thanksgiving Dinner Record. MP4. I started recording that day, she said softly. When Aunt Clarissa was saying mean things again. I just wanted proof. In case no one believed me. I pressed play. What appeared on that screen wasn't just proof, it was dynamite. The video showed Clarissa and Evelyn in the kitchen, completely unaware that Ava was filming from the pantry. He's such a loser, Clarissa sneered. Can you believe he still thinks those kids are his? Pathetic. Evelyn laughed, a sharp, careless giggle. I mean, technically, he's not wrong. He did adopt them. But come on, we all know what really happened back then. Let him keep playing house, Clarissa shot back. I still think you should have taken child support and dumped him. Instead, you married him and got stuck with his boring morality. Then came the line that made my blood boil. When Ava's old enough, Clarissa said, she'll know the truth anyway. She's not his. None of them are. I hit pause. The silence in that room was heavy. Ava looked up at me, eyes wide and unsure. Was it wrong to record that? I pulled her into my arms. No, sweetheart. You were brave. So brave. When I looked back up, Evelyn was in full meltdown. Her parents were frozen. Clarissa's face had gone pale as fresh snow. Congratulations, I said, holding up the tablet. You've just given the world a front row seat to who you really are. I uploaded the file to a secure folder and sent it straight to my attorney with a simple note. Release this to the press if they challenge custody or try to sue for defamation. But I wasn't stopping there. That evening, I made a private social media post, visible only to family and close friends. The title? What really happened at that family gathering? Within an hour, the comments section was on fire. Former friends of Clarissa and Evelyn messaged me with apologies. Evelyn's father's business contacts began distancing themselves. Clients started pulling out of deals. Their carefully polished image? Crumbling in real time. By the next morning, Clarissa's engagement was off. Evelyn's job offer at her father's company was revoked. And the board had sent her parents a formal request to retire. All of it, every consequence, because one little girl decided to protect her dad and pressed record. I gathered my kids and walked away. The court's final blow. In the weeks that followed, the house, once tense and heavy, turned into a place of peace. I filed for full custody of all 3 kids, fully expecting a war. I braced myself for Evelyn to drag it out, cry crocodile tears in court, maybe even try to smear me. But she didn't. She didn't show up for mediation. She skipped the first hearing. She didn't even attend the court-ordered psychological evaluation. According to her lawyer, she'd left town entirely, off to another city with some guy she met on a retreat. Clarissa was nowhere to be found. Evelyn didn't show either. But I was there. Every single time. I came armed with every piece of proof that mattered. Photos from birthdays I had planned down to the last balloon. Pictures from school events where I sat front row, cheering my kids on. Copies of every report card I'd helped frame and hang on our living room wall. And yes, I brought Ava's video again, ready to hit play if anyone dared twist the truth. The judge sat quietly, flipping through the evidence. His eyes lifted to mine, then shifted to the kids. Ava, hands trembling but gaze steady. Liam, calm, composed. Max, gripping my hand like it was the only safe place in the world. The gavel came down like thunder. Full permanent custody granted to the petitioner. All parental rights of the mother are terminated unless, and only if, the children choose to see her again. Gasps filled the courtroom. I let out a breath I'd been holding for years. Years of swallowing pride. Years of humiliation. Years of keeping my head down while my heart took hit after hit, vindicated in one single sentence. But the day still had one last twist. As I turned to leave, my attorney, grinning like a man who knew he'd just won the Super Bowl, handed me a sealed envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Just a little cherry on top," he said. "The DNA results. You told me not to open them unless absolutely necessary." We weren't at necessary anymore, but my fingers broke the seal anyway. 3 names. 3 results. Under each, probability of paternity, 0. 0%. No shock. No heartbreak. Just a quiet, knowing smile. Because I'd known for years. They may not share my blood, but they share my life. My soul. My heart. They are mine, and now, finally, they were free. Free from shame. Free from lies. Free from people who never deserved the title. Family. Epilogue, 1 year later. It had been a year since that gavel slammed down and sealed our freedom. A year since I stopped being the man who let everyone walk over him, and became something stronger. A father, in every way that counts. The kids were thriving. Ava started therapy and joined the debate team. She was blooming like spring after the longest winter. Liam had thrown himself into robotics, already taking home first place at his middle school science fair. Max, my little shadow, still held my hand before bed every night, whispering, "You're my real daddy." We had built something real. Something safe. Something joyful. Then came an invitation I didn't expect, a community recognition banquet hosted by the school board. Turns out Ava had secretly nominated me for Parent of the Year. I didn't even know until they called my name. As I walked to the stage, heart pounding, I saw hundreds of smiling faces. But in the back of the room, arms crossed, jaw tight, stood Evelyn. She looked nothing like the woman I had once married. The shine was gone. Clothes worn thin. Makeup faded. Face tired. She hadn't come for the kids, she came to be seen. I accepted the award, then cleared my throat and looked out at the crowd. This isn't about being perfect, I began. It's about showing up. Every single day. No matter the DNA. No matter the bloodline. No matter how many people try to tell you you're not a real father. Because real fathers? They don't slap. They don't abandon. They don't betray. They protect. They stay. When my eyes found the back of the room again, Evelyn was gone. Later that week, a student posted a clip of my speech on TikTok. It went viral, millions of views, comments flooding in. A major nonprofit reached out, asking me to be the face of a campaign for adoptive fathers. I agreed on one condition. The first billboard had to read, "DNA makes you a parent, but love makes you a dad." They said yes. And Clarissa? She tried to reach out once. One attempt was all it took for her to realize I'd blocked every number, every email, every way back into my life. My silence was louder than her slap ever was. Now our home is filled with laughter. The fridge is covered in school photos. Max's crayon masterpieces. Liam's trophies. And above the dining table hangs a plaque that reads, "World's Greatest Dad, voted unanimously." Every Christmas, Ava hands me the last present of the night. It's always the same, a small box with a handwritten note inside. "Thanks for choosing us when others didn't."